we spend a lot of time on new products. So one of the new product, is that okay to talk about new product?
Oh, please, let's talk about new product. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, so what we'll have some new product.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Hook One Pod. Hey, you know where we're at. We're in the studio right here at Hook One Bait and Tackle in Marine City, Michigan. Hey, we've got an awesome episode scheduled for you guys today. We've got Mr. Aaron Ambur. He's the president of Nexus Outdoors. What is Nexus Outdoors, you ask? Well, they're a parent company. They own companies like Scent Lock, Scent Blocker, Hardcore Waterfowl, Tuo Gear, Tree Spider. But of course, they're the parent company to one of our favorite companies, Whitewater Fishing. They're new to the stage. They've been making leaps and bounds these last couple years. Aaron joins us to talk a little bit about what went on at ICAST. He gives you a little bit of background information on what his career was before he got into this, and really what gives them the expertise and the knowledge moving forward. And we touch on a lot of new pieces coming out, including a new piece coming out this fall that I think you guys will be super, super excited to hear about. Before we dive into the episode, you know I've got to do my thing. I've got to thank all the people that are making this possible right now for us. If you check right here below, there's our discount codes to all of our wonderful sponsors. I want to thank Whitewater Fish. You guys can save up to 25% using our link in our code below. You can save up to 10% on Great Lakes Anglers Coffee Company. 20% of their profits go back to conservation and keeping the Great Lakes beautiful. We want to thank Papa's Pilar for jumping on board with us. We're only the second podcast that they've sponsored, so it's an honor to be with Papa's Pilar. They give you a 10% code below, and we're giving away bottles of rum every month. So check them out, as well as Cortland Line. We've been using Cortland Line on our guide boat for a long time. It's high quality braided line. It's made right here in the USA. That was a big reason we started using them. It was just easier to get stuff that's made in the United States, especially when all that COVID stuff was going on. So a big thank you to our sponsors, guys. A huge thank you to you. We would not be doing this if it wasn't for you guys and wasn't for your support. This has been an insane journey, and it's been super fun to be able to do this and to bring this to you now in our own studio with our own sponsors. It feels like we're a real podcast. But hey, without further ado, let's welcome Aaron from Nexus Outdoors, and let's get into the Hook One Pod.
So yeah, a lot going on, but I'm glad to be here today and talking about whitewater. You talk about ICAST a little bit. Probably one of the questions that I feel the most, Pete, with consumers is, well, tell me about whitewater. And, not only at ICAST is it fun to tell the story, but even with you, and I know you've been part of the brand. And, I simply say, when we set out on whitewater to create this brand, is we really centered on a few different things. And the number one thing that we focused on, just from you think about the foundation of your house, it was really focusing in on mobility. So we didn't want the consumer to have to choose between being cold and really being able to move around, or being warm and comfortable and not being able to do the things you want to do, from picking up a jig on the bottom of the boat, to jumping over the gun hull of your boat, to netting a fish. And you think about every time you cast, every time you bend down, to the degree that you create friction through those movements is the degree you actually create fatigue. And so what we did, number one, in all of our gear in whitewater, is we made sure mobility was key. And so you say, well, okay, Aaron, I get it, but tell me about mobility. Well, mobility is all around making sure we have the right fabrications. And we use stretch in a lot of our garments, in fact, all of our garments, to make sure those highly athletic moves, those high friction perhaps moves that can create tiredness, is that you can bend down, you can cast, and the garment's part of your body. So it's not only the fabric, but then you combine the pattern and the fit combined with the fabrication, you really create a great comfortable situation. So want to make sure people can move. The second thing that we wanted to make sure is that garments were durable, because you think about this fishing thing we're talking about, you definitely beat your stuff up. So making sure that you have the right fabrics, but you also don't give up durability. So that was a key thing. And then third, to make sure all the variables that you deal with from a climate perspective. So you think about, the summer, from the heat, of the summer and that pouring down on you too. Fall, we're going to be talking about that soon, about keeping warm and comfortable when you need to be. So, and then I think the last thing, Pete, that I hear about styling. So if you think about our brand is very clean. So we wanted to make sure that we complemented the consumer and we didn't define them. You'll see we're not a billboard. We're not flashy colors. We're really, I would tell you, just very, very conservative about what we did there because we believe that what the consumer wants. So that's probably, Pete, one of the things that I'm asked a lot about is why do you exist? And I will tell you through those things I talked about, we're definitely turning heads.
Yeah, man. I agree 100%. We worked with another company for a few years, and they make great products. We've ran a lot of the competitor products, and I don't like to talk about what they don't do, but I do like to talk about typically what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing with Whitewater I was super impressed with when I first got the jacket and bibs, and I was worried about temperature because I was running them in the fall. They kept us unbelievably warm. They keep the elements off you, which I was super happy about. But I think
Mm-hmm.
mobility is the big one that not a lot of guys realize. But whether you're picking up the trolling motor or you're sitting down to relaunch the boat or you're, like you said, you're picking a jig up off the bottom or you're jumping around celebrating a 10-pound walleye, you got to be able to move. And it's got to be durable. I mean, someone like me, we're fishing 7 days a week, sometimes 9, 10 trips a week. In the spring when we're rolling, we got hooks flying everywhere. We got slime everywhere. The fish, the gill plates are sharp. The spines on them are spiky. You got to have this stuff last. And that's what we've been super impressed with. And we always say when we brought in our tech shirts here at the shop, and we put our own little Hook One logo on them, we firmly believe you got to look good, you got to feel good, you're going to fish good.
Yeah, I love it too. I think that's so true. And, I think, all the feedback we've gotten, Pete, from guys like you to, we really have a deep connection with the Next Bite as well. So you think about Jason Shakura, world walleye champion. You think young guns like a Matt Schiefelbein, like an old
Yep.
dog like Jim Schiefelbein. You think about Tommy Kimos and Chase and Gary Parsons. You just talk about a stable of guys. Did I say Corey Sprinkle? I probably did. So
Corey
you think,
Springle. Yep.
yeah, you think about a stable of guys, and what I love about them is that as we develop the programs together, obviously we get it to the 2 yard line, but they're the guys that Corey Springle. I told this story a lot at ICAST as well. We'll talk about some of the new products. One of the new products we're launching this fall. He spent I think we counted like it was 64 days in a jacket and bib. And, for most people, Pete, not you, I won't put you in this bucket, but I'll put guys like me that, don't get to do it nearly as much. That's like 6 or 7 seasons for most people. So when you get, a final prototype and you get it fit and finished and you give it to a guy to say, hey, Corey, go beat the living tar out of this and do what you do
Yeah.
and give me feedback, and we get that resounding feedback. Like there's one thing we probably will do on the next one, but it was not a game changer. It makes you feel really good that all that stuff you do, and mind you, we have over 100 years of product development experience in our company that we've done this all of our life. But then again, you still really need people out there beating it up. So you combine our talent with external folks like you, with this Next Bite relationship. Oh, and just by the way, watching Jay Shakur today at on the Bassmaster League,
Yes, sir.
he's another guy that's part of the fold. Just have a really good team around us, and not the team that tells you what you want to hear, but are pretty critical. And they've been around, like the Parsons, Chase and Gary have been around product development with Berkeley for a long time, and with Triton Boats, and they're really able to give some really good quality feedback on, knowing from we got to sell stuff, but it's got to work with every day. So I said Triton, I meant Nitro. So
Right.
anyway, it's been a really fun journey. Not that it's not hard, Pete, but having good people around you. And this world we live in today is not how many sandbags we can carry as a brand. It's how do you bring others around you that can carry the sandbags and help grow the brand.
Yeah, and in today's day and age, we talk a lot with my customers. I hear it a lot in the bait shop, but the fishing industry, really the fishing and hunting industry, but it's a lot of it is a big like marketing contest, right? Like there's new products and there's this they're coming out and there's that coming out, and it's really hard sometimes to file that information. What's useful and important, what's actually going to help me, what stuff that companies are just feeding me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm like one of those nerds that I really like to dive into that stuff. And when I saw the brand come out, I mean, the branding was great, the look of it was good, but then you start to see the guys that are trying it out. And I was fortunate enough to spend 3 days with Chase Parsons at a distributor show a couple years ago. And one of the things he told me was how much of a psycho Corey Sprengel can be, and how when he goes out on the lake, he literally doesn't come off the lake for months at a time in the winter. When I was talking to Doug, we talked specifically about that product that we're gonna talk about here soon. But to hear about what those guys, how they fish, how they treat things, and to hear about the details that are coming out about the products that they're testing, it really gives you a lot of hope moving forward and a lot of excitement. I guess excitement's the better word. A lot of excitement moving forward. So why don't we kind of roll into that a little bit, Aaron? Let's talk a little bit about ICAST.
Yeah.
What ICAST kind of is to you, because to me, I've always dreamed of going to ICAST. I was supposed to be there this year. We had the hotel booked. We were ready to go. And my son was he came about 3 weeks early. So super exciting. Him and mom are good. But that puts a little damper in the plans of flying all the way down to Florida. So
Absolutely.
kind of what is ICAST in your eyes, and what were you guys super excited about to kind of bring to the table this year? Because it was a lot of good things.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. So, for the listeners that don't know about ICAST, so ICAST is a big event in Orlando. It's it is the fishing show of the world, and when I say fishing show, it's where all the big marine and big fishing brands come together, and that interaction is designed for retail partners. So you think about any of these big retailers that actually are buying from these companies. That's where they go to get exposed to new product. And in that, you also have a group of marketing people. So you think about people that have marketing, podcast guys to publications to all the media personalities. They're there, and it's not a consumer event, unlike other events where the consumers get to go in there. So it's a pretty intimate show. And unfortunately, I do love fishing. I didn't get to really walk around and see all of what the new brands are doing, and we were there specifically to talk to writers, to engage with our retailers, and really to show our new wares, if you will, from the show. So it was great, engaging show. And I think the biggest thing, Pete, that I would take away from it would add to something we talked about earlier. It's one thing to think you're doing good things, but when you have folks, writers showing up and retailers saying, "Hey, I saw you guys. Tell me more about your brand." And then when you actually tell the story, much like how we opened the show today, and they're like, "You guys get it." And I'm like, for me, it's like, well, yeah, no shit. I do get it. But what it really meant to me is you said something about marketing gimmicks. And when we go through every feature and function on our product, and when we can talk first person about this is why that matters, it's not about, at the end of the day, it's a jacket and a bib, or it's a shirt and a pant. But all the things you do, from the fabrication to the fit to all the little trims to the feature function you put into it, and being able to tell that story, why you did it and why it matters, they're just like, i I can't believe it. And that's, again, no disrespect to the other brands that I'm basically paid to put out of business every day, but it's just to really pay respect to this team's effort and our alliances and what we're doing. So we spend a lot of time telling the brand story. Certainly that ICAST show, Pete, it has a lot more salt. So you think about offshore, sort of, just by nature of being Orlando. It doesn't mean you don't get a lot of Midwestern people, but predominantly you see captains coming through. You see a lot of writers that are more salt influenced.
Yeah.
A lot more UPF. I spent a lot of time on our new Prevail pant, a raised hoodie. Think about all that lightweight stuff, shorts for the summer. But then I'd get into the inclemency side when I talk about our rain gear and our new products on that side. So it was just a great show. And of course, everyone knows Jay Shakurat on the bass fishing side. So he spent a lot of time in our booth, and I had all the Next Bite guys there. So that was exciting to, the Joe Thomas. I don't know if you know Joe Thomas from Steel Outdoors. So Joe was there. Just had a lot of different people there supporting us. So you get to see, a lot of the important people who run the business. But then for a guy like me, who I've been kicking it around for a few years, Pete, it's kind of like the first week back to college. I get to see a lot of old friends and industry folks that,
Yes.
I worked at Cabela's for 16 years. And when that whole thing blew up, a lot of the parts went across the country. So I get to see them, to old people that I used to deal with when I was running the buying department on the hunting apparel and hunting hard goods side and footwear side. So I get to see a lot of those old friends too. So it's a marvelous event, and super glad we went.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. And that's kind of the big thing in our industry. My customers are always, they come in because we're such a walleye dominant area here between Lake Erie and Saginaw Bay, and then obviously everything in between: Detroit River, Lake St. Clair River, even Lower Lake Huron. We're such a walleye dominant fishery, even though Lake St. Clair's got phenomenal bass fishing and that's what it's known for. A lot of our guys don't understand it. And I'm like, man, by the time you get down to the walleye side of things, first off, it's saltwater. There's so much money into saltwater fishing. The amount of money that these guys spend on rods and reels and line and baits, and their boat and their equipment, it's insane. So like you've got to get through that. And then bass fishing, right? Bass fishing, more people bass fish than anything else in the world combined. So it's by far your biggest market, which helps to have a young stud like Jay there. I mean, the guy's just been on a tear, and he came here and he won the Open.
Well, yeah. So think about ICAST. It was the Tuesday. It was a Wednesday after he won on Saturday. Yeah. So he won the Open there at Lake St. Clair. So yeah, that wasn't bad either.
No. Hey, that was a good showing for Whitewater, because we had Aaron Jagfield on the show 2 episodes ago, and he had a heck of a showing too. So for Whitewater to bring home 1 and 2 in that Bassmaster Open was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, and Pete, this. You go to, again, this is an opinion, but I think it's pretty true. So the Bassmaster Elite events, where they go to these bodies of water and they have very specific practice times, and it's a pretty locked down event. So all these guys are pretty much dealing with the same amount of variables there, unless you're pro that grew up on that home lake. So you go to the Lake St. Clairs of the world, where you got all the local sticks that can enter these events. It is, I'm telling you, it's tougher to win an Open than I believe than it is to win an elite event.
I would agree 100%. And in the rules that they place on the Opens, as far as like, you got to take, I think it's like a 3-week break. So it weeds out the guides. But like you said, it's those local sticks, those guys that aren't guiding, that are looking for big fish all the time. I mean, they can just sign up for whatever the entry fee is, and go do it. And I knew guys that did that were, they had high expectations. But Jay was very impressive last year, his rookie year, when they were here for the Bassmaster Elite Series. He did very well. I kind of expected the same thing. Aaron is the same way. The kid's 23 years old. He's got a lot going for him. He knows how to break down water. But you're right. You get Saturday until Wednesday at noon to pre-fish, and then you're done Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday are the events for the Open, and then Saturday is the final day, top 10. So you really don't get a lot of time to break down that water. It's very impressive what those guys have done, and it probably helps big time having him in the booth.
Yeah, it sure does. And when you talk about just those key skills of breaking down water, he obviously has that it factor, because he can, even though he knows that body water okay, he is able to compete head to head. And I will tell you, he did the boa constrictor move, which I knew day one he was in it. I'm like, well, that's good. And then when I saw day 2, he was just tightening down. The leader was going this way and Jay was going that way. I'm like, he's probably got this one, but you still need to make it happen, getting the hook set. My favorite picture is he's cradling that 4-pounder or whatever it was on the side of the boat. And I'm like, man, that's good stuff. That is damn good stuff right there.
And a heck of a marketing shot there too.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm proud of Aaron too. I mean, what a great performance. And to your point, just to wrap that up, just great to see those guys. And I'm humbled every day, Pete, humbled by this conversation. I'm humbled by all the people that chosen just to be part of our journey. It's pretty exciting.
That's cool, man. I mean, hey, I feel the same way. I was super stoked to hear that you join us for this episode. Obviously I'm like looking at the time of year, I'm like, all right, we're gonna have to squeeze this sucker in. But it's really cool because what I want for our listeners and for our our customers that come into the store, I want to hear it right from the horse's mouth. Because a lot of the
Mhm.
times, like, I'm biased, right? Like, I have a biased opinion. Nobody wants to hear about what baits I'm using because obviously I'm using what's in the store. Nobody wants to hear about what I'm wearing because we're selling it in the store. So, like, here it is. This is
Yeah.
this is the God's honest truth. This is a little peek into the back door of what our industry is. Because to be honest with you, Aaron, this is when I signed the papers to get this building and start this bait shop in 2021. This is like the retail side of this is a totally different monster than what 90% of the people see the fishing industry is. So it's really
Mhm.
cool that I can give people that kind of peek in the back door per se.
Yeah, and Pete, for listeners that don't know me from Adam, just going to share a little bit about it because what I hope that people take away from it is how we run the business and how important this is to us. Like, I'm a small farm kid from South Dakota, and I grew up 20 miles out in the country, and I grew up in the horse and three-wheeler days, not the four-wheeler days, and I grew up, jumping stock ponds with my shotgun to bass fishing on stock ponds and throwing an old nippiditty on a quiet dam and twitching that thing a couple times and having a bass roll it. I mean, that's how I grew up. A very and you think about South Dakota and just kind of the culture. I talk about it's the code of the West, which is the handshake, and it's
Mm-hmm.
mean what you say and saying what you mean, and it's doing right by people. So when you think about I would tell you that culture exists here. And when you translate that into how we run our business and how we develop product, we don't put things on garment unless we truly feel like it's going to work. And I told this at ICAST to some people. It's like, my passion is not a head passion. It's not a heart passion. My passion and our team's passion comes from our toes. It comes from our toes and all the way up your body. And we do not want to disappoint people. Inevitably,
Mm-hmm.
in this game, Pete, where there's rubbing, there's racing, and you never do everything perfect. But I'll tell you what, we have an unbelievable drive to always make something better. So whenever we get feedback, whether it's a waterproofing issue or a durability issue or a fit issue, I'll tell you that stuff comes right to my desk. And I learned this from Jim Cabela when I worked at Cabela's for 16 years. Is that Jim and his brother Dick founded it, and Mary Cabela was just Dick's wife as well, as very involved in business. And to the day before Jim was no longer involved in the business, Jim would always bring customer. He would read every customer feedback card, and when Jim came to your office and he had a stack of cards for you, it wasn't, hey, are you going to do something about this? Part of the culture was he knew that you were going to read every comment card and do as much as you could, whether it was a brand that you brought into the assortment, they need to make some improvements, or was private label. You took that to heart. And I would say that's something that, I didn't need to be taught that was right, because that's how I grew up. But I will just tell you that's that culture that Jim had to make sure we always put the customer and their voice and made sure we were reacting to things that were disappointing them. And that's that drive and that passion that I will tell you we emulate here, Pete, is just that tireless drive to not disappoint people and
Yep.
not be in the way of having a great experience with our friends or family and our product. That's something that we take very serious.
And having the ability to learn, like that, I think that's the biggest thing that you've kind of got across is like, we're not going to be perfect. The first go isn't going to be perfect. So we've got to learn, we've got to listen. Having the humility and being humble enough to understand that is, I mean, that's crazy to think that, Cabela, like Jim himself sat there and read all those cards, but that's what made Cabela's. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's that type of work and care. So that's really cool. And especially hearing it from, like you said, you've been in this business now a long time. Cabela's for 16 years and now running with this,
Yeah.
and probably before that. So that's super cool to hear. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so we're excited. The last thing I'll tell you about ICAST is that what we do at ICAST as well as tell about new products. So we have our whole assortment there, Pete. And because you'll meet some retail buyers that aren't doing business with you today, so you walk through all the assortment. But for those companies that are already engaged with you, we spend a lot of time on new products. So one of the new product, is that okay to talk about new product?
Oh, please, let's talk about new product. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, so what we'll have some new product. We actually, I'll start with some new fall, a new fall product that we'll have, and
Yes.
that's we currently have a product called the Great Lakes Pro jacket and bib, and that's a 3-layer uninsulated jacket and bib. So what we're doing for this fall is we actually have a, Great Lakes Pro insulated jacket and bib. And Pete, you has Doug spilled any beans with you yet?
Not. I knew that the insulated one was coming, but that's about all I knew.
Yeah. So the thing about what I love about the Great Lakes Pro Insulated is that when we thought, so we wanted to have a solution for customers that wanted to take in more insulated properties, whether it's the soft water and fall, like we talked early in the show,
Mm-hmm.
or it's hard water, or if you think about this Great Lakes consumer, he's on the water 12 months of the year, or fishing, I should say, and pursuing it. So what we tried to do is we said, well, flotation is a big thing that is in the industry. And I have to tell you, I punted on flotation. And it's not that I don't want to make sure people feel comfortable getting on the water. So I tell them if you at all costs aren't going to get in a late season, early season, or hard water condition and feel comfortable, go do your passion, I'm not for you. But what we see, Pete, is there's a pretty big trend on this whole mobility. So what we try to do is we brought an insulated garment, jacket and bib to market, and we'll probably launch it. I think it's probably mid-October right now, where it is unbelievable light. But so you think about the weight to warmth ratio, it's not very heavy by nature of what it may look like, and the warmth is off the board. So we made sure that we brought zoned Primaloft insulation to it. So
Mm-hmm.
not only do we have a great nylon stretch fabric on the outside, but we have zoned Primaloft, and we put more insulation on the back than the chest because you have a bib. So we put less insulation in the top of the bib than we did the legs. So it's a zoned Primaloft insulation story. So it's got great thermal value. It's got great durability. It's got great stretch. We even did things on the knee, which has, we used a material that has 100% water impermeability, so you
Oh,
can't press water through at the knees. Yet you can hardly see them, so they don't look like a big patch.
yep.
But that's great, and great abrasion resistance, full length zippers. It is just a marvelous piece. In fact, Pete, I would tell you this, and I told people at the ICAST show, I've never seen such a perfect garment in my life. And that was the garment I told you that Corey Springle spent, over two and a half
Yes.
months out at Devil's Lake beating it up. And Corey's also telling me that there's a pretty big consumer movement, at least, and a lot of this happens west to east. So think about all those Western guys that have lightweight, layering sort of solutions, high agility sort of solutions on the
Mm-hmm.
Western. So that's moving across from west to east. And I'm telling you, all of our Next Bite guys, our pro staff, Jay actually wore, Pete, the Great Lakes Pro Insulated at the first couple of days of Bassmaster Classic. And I only tell you that because Jay's got our full assortment, but he was that comfortable fishing that event because he didn't want to trade off being warm and not being able to move around, which is classically how it works. But he was able to do everything he was. Those bass guys are hanging off the back of their boat. So we were really excited, and I'm telling you, we have big things happening with the launch of that product, for launch of that jacket and suit this fall, and it's really exciting.
Well, I can promise you I'm going to own one of those. I'm an absolute sissy when it comes to the cold weather. I always joke around with people. I belong in the salt because I just love that warm water and fishing when it's warm. Um, but you mentioned how it looks lightweight, but it's heavyweight. That's kind of how the Great Lakes suit was. Like I got it and I
Yeah,
wore it to the launch one day in November to do some trolling on St. Clair. And my buddy that picked me up was like, dude, are you serious? Like, should I
yeah,
throw an extra jacket and bibs in the truck? And I was like, no, I think I'm good. Like I talked to the guys.
yeah,
I think I'm good. And we went out there and that was the uninsulated one. And I was super happy with it. So for our listeners, and for you guys listening, if you want to see the insulated one, obviously we'll be letting you guys know when it drops. I'm going to own one so you could come check them out, but I am super stoked. That was the one Doug mentioned that was like top of the list. I was like, yes, because I can't believe how comfortable I am in that Great Lakes suit. Like you said with Jay, like it's just typically it's like, I'm going to wear this, but I know, I'm going to have to take layers off once we get fishing, once we get moving around, stuff like that. I don't have to worry about that in the suit. And
Yeah.
that is a big bonus for me.
Well, and I'm a big layering guy, so I'll take the Great Lakes Pro and I'll use a hoodie. I'll put some base layer on. I may use a heated vest. And a lot of times fishing, I like to do that. And especially if I'm like ice fishing, where I'm doing a lot of mobile fishing, I maybe want to be a little warmer or a little bit more agile to shed layers and all that. But I will tell you, just the simplicity, Pete, of what you said, where, why don't I just put this on? It feels light. Yeah, it's got great thermal value. I think it's going to find a lot more people fishing it on, in the fall and the spring, even late into the spring. Why be cold? I mean, I'm with you, Pete. I don't like to be cold. I'm probably not as tough as I used to be, but why? Why be uncomfortable? So you allow them to move around and yet be very, thermally, have good thermal protection. It's just, it's a home run. Our Canada guys, we have some dealers in Canada. They're just all jacked up about. They're like, this is absolutely the most coolest piece, and so it's exciting. And Pete, no one has done stretch and worked on this weight and this agility thing in the industry. So I'm going to continue to take claim for that, and we are changing the way people are approaching the water.
As you should, man. And it's the little details, it's the heavy duty zippers. So a zipper isn't going to pop off in 2 months. It's not using as much Velcro, more buttons, so you're not getting stuck everywhere. It's the padding. It's like you said, the padding in the knees is something like, whether you're ice fishing and you're fishing on the hole, or you're fishing out of the boat and you're down there tying knots or cleaning fish or counting fish, or if you're fishing a tournament and you're calling them, you're down there, and a lot of the times it seeps through and it gets down into your knees and onto your legs. It's the little things, man. It's the little things that, like you said, it comes around and it makes it this, you hate to use the word perfect, but it makes this perfect garment, but that's how much time and effort has gone into a piece like that.
Absolutely. I even called Corey one day when he was out at Devil's Lake. I'm like, Corey, I need you to test something out. And I said, I need you to get in your range or get really warm. And then I need you to go out in some slush because it was cold outside. Go get in some slush and put your knee down. And what I want to do is that many times in which overlays on the knees are used, when you go from a hot environment to a cold environment, you get that stickiness of all that ice and snow that comes back up on your knee. What's amazing is that this overlay we did on the knee does not pick up any ice or slush, so you don't get these crusty knees walking around. So again, that's just some of the details that we worked on. We want to solve that problem, and it's hard to mimic that without being in the conditions. So exciting, to say the least.
You can't. So I'm super excited for that one, but I understand you guys released a few more new ones. Are we allowed to share anything else, or are we keeping it tight to the vest here?
Well, a couple
tight
of
to the heated vest.
Yeah, I would say for fall, that would be kind of our big story. And then for spring, we're going to do some other things. We're going to actually bring a lightweight puffy jacket. So super packable, super lightweight, yet great thermal value, wind protection, nice hood. So if you notice some of the movement, there's some guys that will like to wear a 3-layer bib, and then they'll like to have an insulating layer. So we've actually created this a super great lightweight micro puffy jacket. So that will bring the assortment as well. So think about layering. You can use our buoy hoodie. You can use this lightweight packable insulated jacket. You can use our heated vest. When you think about those late fall, winter, spring, we definitely have a great assortment there. We'll have another hoodie that will sit between our logo hoodie and our buoy hoodie. That'll be just a little bit more lighter weight. Full face mask. We'll have a vent drift off the back. It'll have, we have adjustments on the hood that don't dangle. It's all interior there. We'll have a zip kangaroo pocket. So we have that coming out as well. And then we'll have another product coming out as well. So, just trying to extend the assortment. build some more solutions into that. And then, believe it or not, Pete, we're working on 26 development right now for spring. So certainly exciting.
And that's just whitewater.
And that's just whitewater.
That's just whitewater. There's one,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. There's 5 other companies in that umbrella. It's like, it's just the amount of work and effort that goes into it is just, it's remarkable to me.
Yeah.
And like you said, the hood, you
Yeah.
brought up the hood because you understand it. I realize a lot of guys don't understand that, like, if you've got a bad hood or a loose hood, I know it sounds stupid, but it compromises a lot of what you're trying to wear. Where, like, a nice fit hood, you can throw that thing up and run 50 miles an hour across the lake, or you can have it up and you're not going to get any rain or water or wind, penetrate to the back of your neck and start to cool your body from the top down. So, that's important.
Well, in addition to that, Pete, you think about the whitetail hunter, Western big game hunter that wants to wear a hood and being able to turn their head and see and yet have a hood that keeps you protected. That's something you can take out of the hunting world. That's definitely applicable to the fishing world. You don't want to have to look the side if a boat's coming, or you want to look at your co-angler, or you want to look down a graph. You don't want to be fighting your hood. So a nice conform hood that moves with body, it allows you to do everything. Tying a jig, not having to get blocked from a vision. It's all that little stuff that has found its way from what we're good at on the hunting side in the fishing world as well. So definitely it's exciting to see us show up in so many more places, to have people approach us at ICAST, say, I've heard about you, tell me more. It's been a really fun journey, Pete.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. Let's kind of gear a little bit away from ICAST, dude. I think we really touched on that. I'm super excited. So the soonest thing that we can look forward to, guys, is that insulated Great Lakes Pro suit that's going to be coming out this fall. Everything else we'll kind of wait for. I know Whitewater, they were with us in Novi. I'm assuming they're going to be with us again at the fishing show this year.
Yeah.
Novi and Grand Rapids. So you'll have
we'll be at those two shows. And then I think we're going to slip up to Minneapolis. Maybe they have a big ice show up in Minneapolis. So I'm working with Whitewater Doug, and I would call him Whitewater Doug. Sometimes we call Doug Orlando because, he's kind of an OG, I don't know if you remember Orlando Wilson back in the day. We call him Orlando sometimes. They call him Whitewater Doug sometimes. So we're thinking about even going to Minneapolis. Minnesota's a great market as well for us, and going and talk about the Great Lakes Pro Insulated. So
it's the Minneapolis show is a really big show. One of our buddies here that makes rods, that we sell as rods, he said that's one of his best ice shows. I mean, it's like 4 stories tall. He said it makes Novi look like child's play.
Yeah.
So that would be really cool to see. And you touched on something earlier, and it does seem like a lot of stuff kind of advances from west to east. Like, I talk with my customers all the time. We talk on the podcast all the time. It's funny how, the next new thing is always coming from the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then eventually it makes its way over to the Great Lakes. And I always make the joke, like, we've been fishing the same water the same way for 60 years. So it's nice to start seeing that new technology and those new techniques start making their way over here. So that'd be a pretty cool show to attend.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to all the opportunities to go and touch and feel customers as much as we can, and allow them to see our gear and tell our story.
Yep, absolutely. So, hey, before we wrap things up, because there's a couple things I want to touch on here for the ending. For you podcast listeners, I told you guys this is what we want to do. This was the whole point of partnering up with the great sponsors that we've partnered up with. We gave away the rum recently. We're going to give away some whitewater gear. Why not, Aaron, right?
Absolutely.
So, hey, guys, same deal as before. All you got to do is share this video where you find it and be subscribed to the Hook One Fishing YouTube channel. And the next thing you got to do is comment done. Let us know if you want blue or gray. And you can get bonus entries. The easiest way to get bonus entries is to find us and Whitewater Fishing on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, I believe it's at Whitewater Fish. It's Whitewater Fishing on Facebook. Head over there, give them a like. Yes, I'll know if you liked it or not. Head over to our Facebook, our Instagram. I'm assuming that you've already liked it, but if you haven't, give it a like. Subscribes are free, guys, and it helps keep this ball rolling, and it'll help keep the giveaways going. So let us know if you want blue or gray. They've got some sharp looks. Aaron's actually got on the hat that I'm in love with right now, and that's the Whitewater rope hat. So you can probably find that in Hook One coming up this fall, as long as they're still in stock, because they've been selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, it's even old guys like me start wearing a rope hat. I
Oh,
tell people the
dude.
story though, real quick, is that I posted a picture of my dad and I when I was holding up some bass when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I had a rope hat on. So I call it 1978. It had a Wyoming bucking bronco on it. It had a rope on it. So I'm like, dude, I'm just doing what I did a long time ago. You guys are just finally catching up.
Isn't that crazy, man, how it comes around? Because rope hats are like the thing now.
I
That's
know.
that is so funny. Those hats are comfortable too. Whatever that material is that they're made out of is very comfortable.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but cool, guys. Well, there's your chance to win this week on the giveaway. Again, just subscribe and keep rolling. So, Aaron, I got a couple quick, just fun questions for you, real quick, before we get out of here. The first one is, what are you most excited for coming up? I know you do a lot of hunting. I know you do, some fishing. Is it more business related? What are you excited for coming up?
Yeah, well, a couple things I'm excited for. I did draw a New Mexico elk tag. I mentioned that earlier in the show, and I drew. It's a once in a lifetime draw in New Mexico, so I'm going there September 16th to hunt elk in the rut, which is great for us guys that don't get to do it a lot. So I'm excited for that. And then the other thing I'm super excited for, I'm just hoping the great gods of the weather and our Lord Almighty gives us ice on Saginaw Bay this year, because it's been 2 years,
Dude.
Pete, since I've been able to come over there, and it's one of my most joyous trips I take all year. I try to get over there two, maybe three times, but and for some reason, Pete, I won't make this long, but I'm usually mad at fish, and I like to chase them and run them down, and I'm frustrated if I don't catch them.
Yeah.
What I enjoy about ice fishing, I sometimes, for some reason, when I get on the ice, and Saginaw is my very favorite place because I get to get my camera down, and I get to watch things I never get to see. I love the sandy bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't get too mad at them. I wait till the fish. I try to find the fish, but a lot of times I let the fish find me. So I'm hoping we have ice this year. The industry needs it. I need it. You need it. I can't wait to get back out in the ice, because it's been, Pete, it's been a couple of tough years here,
Yeah.
for any sort of extended periods on the ice. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for those two things.
And I'll tell you, we're blessed because we don't do a lot, like where we're at on the river. We don't do a ton of ice fishing. It might be a couple spoons here and there, some live bait and stuff like that. But for my fellow retailers and guys that are around Lake St. Clair, I mean, I know I can speak for them. Like, we need ice in a bad way. Like,
Mhm.
there's too much product sitting around. There's too much money sitting around. I can only imagine, you hear customers like, oh, I wish they had this. I wish they had that. Well, they got 10 grand of ice fishing stuff sitting in the back. Do you know what they could do for the spring walleye run if they actually sold that 10 grand worth of product? So it's hard, and that's stuff you don't realize until you're actually in this industry. And so I feel for those guys, man. And then I feel for guys like us. Aaron, how much money have we spent on ice fishing stuff the last 2 years because we get so excited to get ice and
Mhm.
then we don't get any. And so now we've
Yeah.
got stuff just sitting around.
Absolutely, and it's sad. I mean, because what we love this industry only works if this industry is successful and can turn that inventory. So we need it for the passion we have, because otherwise, guys like you and we're just not around, because we, at the end of the day, we all have to feed our families. I have to sell stuff. You have to sell stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we need the right climate to do that. And we could use some cold weather in the hunting season too. That would always help. So cold weather would help all.
I know, man. That's the one thing. Like, when I stopped hunting, I stopped hunting like pre-COVID, because COVID is when I dove like just all year round. Which I think I'm going to start taking up hunting again, because it would be nice to have a little break and clear the mind. But you're sitting up in your tree stand. It's 75 degrees to start bow season in October, and it's like, what do we do? I'm going to shoot the deer, and by the time I get to him, it's going to be well done. Yeah, well done back straps. So we'll see. And I will say that this is the last thing I'll kind of touch on as well about the ice is we have noticed a huge difference this spring and partially last spring. And I think a lot of it has to do with, no ice up on Lake Huron, no ice, specifically for the St. Clair River, no ice in Lake St. Clair. I don't think those fish had the need. We're a big migrational fishery. We rely on those fish migrating through, chasing bait, whether it's salmon or trout or walleye or muskie or smallmouth. And I've noticed a big difference this year on how the fish are acting, where the fish are sitting, how far they've kind of come up the river. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of ice. I mean, it's just not the weather we're getting right now is not natural, I think is the best way to put it. So it would really help.
Yeah, I agree.
So, hey, man, I really want to thank you again for jumping on. Thank you for, helping us give away some of this whitewater stuff, helping us see into the retail side of things and kind of how you do it. Because, again, this you could tell listening to this, sitting down and listening to this for 45 minutes, you could tell that it's not a sales pitch. This is simply how things are done, how you guys are doing things moving forward. And honestly, a lot of the information you gave us is valuable. So Aaron, I really appreciate that, man.
Yeah, hey Pete. Again, I said it earlier. I'll say it again. I'm humbled that you invited me on your call today. Also humbled by any customers that have started the journey with us and entrusted your hard-earned dollars. Nothing's cheap these days, so trust me, I appreciate that. And for those that aren't following, follow Pete's lead, not only for the giveaway, but just go watch the content we're putting out there on Instagram and Facebook. It's actually fun. YouTube channel. We have an internal guy doing a Pure Head series. He's hitting all these pures on Lake Michigan. It's great content. So if you enjoy this passion, regardless of this gosh dang product we're talking about, just go enjoy some of the content we're putting out. It's exciting. And if you're humbled by the conversation, intrigued by the conversation today, please come check us out and love to have your business.
Yeah, man. And you mentioned price point, guys. These tech shirts are $40 with the logo on the front, with the St. Clair River logo on the back. I mean, it's not, you can spend $80 on a t-shirt now in a heartbeat. So as much as everything is expensive, these guys are doing their best to keep it easy for you guys. $40 for a UPF shirt. You're not going to be sunburned. You're going to be comfy on the water. Just check it out. Aaron, typically I like to ask people, how can our listeners follow along and support you? I mean, I know you have a personal Instagram page, but what can these guys do to help you the best? Is it follow along on Whitewater's site and follow the rest of them? Scent Lock, Scent Blocker, Hardcore Waterfowl, Tuo Gear, Tree Spider. What you got?
Yep, I do all the above, and I think the most important thing is, well, two things. If you've had a good experiences with our product, please go on there and write a review so others can hear from you that are in the digital world. And then probably more the old school is, if you're happy with your product, tell your buddy and make sure he has a good experience as well. And I think with us creating great product, customers having great experiences, customers telling those experiences to friends, family, and posting a review, and then just engaging in what we're doing on social. That's all I can ask, and that's actually probably more than I should ask, but that all helps this thing roll, helps us create new product, bring new solutions out, new colors, what be it, and then obviously with guys like Pete, support his business. That's the most important part at the end of the day.
And you and I know we can do as many of these podcasts as we want, and you can jump on as many shows as you want, but that word of mouth exposure is the best way to do it. And guys, hey, you can save yourself some money. Use our Whitewater code, WWEXUJ5. It's right here. You can save up to 25% on their website. So it's an unbelievable way to follow along on the journey, be a part of this movement. And like you said, if you liked what Aaron said, if you appreciated the way he runs his business, well, let's support. Pass it around, because they care about the small business just as much as we care about the big business. Aaron, I want to thank you again. If you could just stick around after the call for 1 minute just to make sure this all gets saved.
All right.
And other than that, guys, please support the rest of our sponsors. You got Whitewater. We've got Great Lakes Anglers Co. 20% of their profits are going back to conservation, especially up in areas like Saginaw Bay, fighting a lot of these commercial fishermen and the commercial fishermen rights. So we've got Great Lakes Anglers Co. We've got Cortland Line, made right here in the U.S. Phenomenal braided line. If you're a fly fisherman, then you've obviously already heard of them. And how can I forget Papa's Pilar? If you're having a long day, sit back, pour some Pilar on the rocks. I promise you won't regret it. Guys, thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you next week on the Hook One Pod. Adios.